I love campfires, but what I really love is chopping wood and doing all the preparation necessary and taking care of my axes and hatchets. The fire is just an excuse for that. So one of the really important jobs that I oftentimes get to do and people have asked me about is dealing with either a loose head when the head of your axe starts rattling around on the handle, or invariably at some point the wood becomes damaged, the wood of the handle that is, and you need to change it. I'm going to go through dealing with both scenarios right now. First, let's talk about just a loose head. The handle is otherwise undamaged, but when you pick up the tool, you can feel the head moving, and when you swing it, it actually affects the swing, and you should definitely fix that. It comes from the tool being stored indoors in a dry, heated place, your typical heated garage or workshop, which isn't ideal, believe it or not. It should probably stay in a place with a little bit of a high humidity so that the wood doesn't shrink away. But you store it where you have to. The way to take care of a loose head is pretty simple. I use a big mallet like this and hold the tool upright, point the blade away from you, and just a couple of quick raps on the bottom, and that drives the weight of the head down onto the tool. Seems counterintuitive, but it works really well. An alternative way to do that, especially if you're in the middle of chopping wood or on a camping trip, is to find a big heavy rock or anything solid and just drive the tool down onto a solid surface. And here I'm going to just use the workbench top for that job. And between those 4 blows on the mallet and the workbench, this is snugged up nice and tight. Give a quick look and make sure that the wedge isn't loose. In my case, it isn't, so I don't need to drive the wedge down anymore. But that's usually a quick and easy maintenance for tightening up a head that has become loose. However, you look at this axe, the handle has a big crack going all the way down. So I'm going to go through the entire process of what it means to cut it off, drive the remaining wood out of the eye of the axe, and put a new handle on it and wedge that in place. The first thing is safety, to prevent yourself from getting cut. I keep my axes pretty sharp, so this is just a little bit of a painter's tape that I've put over the blade. It's not cut proof, but it's a pretty good interim protection to keep me from getting cut. And it's really helpful to have a nice vise. I'm using the versatile vise because I'll get to reposition it as I go through this process. You don't have to have a versatile vise. Any solid vise will do. But being able to hang the tool off the edge of the bench eventually is going to come in really handy. So the first thing I'm going to do is just clamp the tool up inside the vise and cut the head off. Even though the wood is damaged, it's still sort of painful for me to cut perfectly good wood. But here we go. Now that I've got the axe head cut off of the damaged handle, it's time to remove the remaining wood from the eye. One thing to keep in mind, in this case, my handle was in pretty good shape. It was cracked, which is why I'm removing it. So getting the remainder of the wood out can be difficult. One little tip I have is before you try to drive it out, which is ultimately what we're going to do, I'm going to try and waste some of the wood out of the hole by drilling it out with a drill bit. The size doesn't matter, just a big enough one to fit in there, but not tiny so you're drilling a million holes. And I'm being sloppy and pivoting the drill everywhere because I'm not trying to drive a neat hole, I'm trying to waste wood. Second hole right next to that. And if at all possible, try and do it from both sides. You're not always able to do that because sometimes the old handle is wedged in with a steel wedge In this case, all I have is a wood wedge, so I can go from both sides. Alright, I've drilled about halfway in, 2 holes both sides. Let's see if I can drive it out with a mallet and just a big old bolt. Almost out. Just a few more hits. Yeah. All right, there it is, free and clean. So let's grab the new handle and make sure it fits nicely. See if I need to whittle any refinement in the shape. I don't think I do. Let's see. So here's that head tightening trick. If it gets stuck, I'll just have to take it off and whittle it. It's going in nicely. What I'm watching for is that there's no wood being shaved by the head as it goes down. It's just slipping right in, and there you can see it coming out. And I think I'm almost seated at the shoulder now. A few more hits. Yeah. So now I've got some extra handles sticking out of the top, way more than I want. So I'm going to cut that off down to about 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to drive the wedge in. Again, a nice tight clamp so my work proceeds efficiently. I'm going to cut about half of that off. So I made just a little bit of splinters there. That's easy to clean up. Now I'm ready to put my wood wedge in. I'm going to reposition the vise because the optimal way to do this is to have the axe hanging straight up and down off the edge of my workbench. That's about enough. I'm beginning to really shave wood going in, but I don't want to drive it so much that I start cracking my wood wedge apart. So the next step is to cut that excess wedge off. Let's see if I can cut it on the horizontal here. I'm just going to cut it flush with the top of the handle. That's where the split had started, but that's fine. And then the final step for a solid installation is this little steel wedge, which I usually drive right down the center of the wood wedge and at a diagonal, not square with the face, but diagonal to it. And this I really work to try to bury. I have to bury this. There. Don't try to overdrive it, because now you're just trying to work against the handle staying in. Once it's flush, you stop. And that's it. I could probably sand this and clean it up a little bit, but then the final step is to oil the whole thing down with some linseed oil or some tung oil. Wipe off the excess, take the safety tape back off, and you're ready to go chop wood.